We should. For this meeting.
All right. So we're going to call the meeting to order at just before 8 o'clock, 7:58. So let's do roll call.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner Cummings?
Here.
Commissioner LaRoche?
Here.
Commissioner Parsons?
Here.
Commissioner Adams?
Here.
Commissioner Banks?
Here.
Commissioner Budashevsky?
Here.
And Commissioner Kaiser. We have a quorum.
All right, we're going to approve the minutes from May 18th, 2021 regular meeting. Any discussion on the meetings or looking for a motion? Commissioner Nancy LaRoche.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, looking for a second. Commissioner Adams.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor, let's say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. The minutes passed. Now on to item number 4, public hearing and consideration of a resolution authorizing the sale of an EDA lot at 4741 Welcome Avenue North for construction of a 4-unit residential building.
All right. Thank you again. This is something you may recall from about a month ago where you gave tentative approval to a proposal from Gernco Construction to build a new 4-unit residential building on this site. The building design would basically be sort of like a 1980s style quad, not a 1950s style fourplex. But it would, unlike a quad, it would not have separate ownerships. It would basically be a rental building that would happen to have 4 units, each unit having their own private garage and their own private entrance. So, but they are still working on their detailed site and building plans. And so for that reason, tonight we would ask you to open the hearing, take any public comment if there is any, and then we would like to see a motion to continue the hearing to June 15th, and by then we expect to have those detailed plans for public and EDA review.
Okay. I think now's the time to open the public hearing, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, well, I will open the public hearing for approving the sale of 4741 Welcome Avenue North. And seeing no one approach, I will close the public hearing. And John Sutter, I think it might be back to you. Is that right? Okay.
So then we just need a motion from the EDA to continue the hearing.
All right, let's make a motion. I'm looking for a motion to continue the hearing. Commissioner Jim.
I would like to make a motion to continue this meeting until June 16th, was it? 15th. 15th, thank you.
15th. All right, looking for a second. Nancy.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, so the hearing has been moved. And on to item number 6.
Thank you again. This is something that should be viewed as a very preliminary step. As you all know, the city has made some pretty significant investments in the kind of the heart of our town center redevelopment area, including the Bass Lake Road streetscape and, of course, most recently celebrated the new revamped Becker Park. South of Becker Park, though, the infrastructure is kind of the at best, the 80s vintage, and a lot of it is from the 50s and 60s, including overhead power lines and some kind of misaligned intersections and some other things. And so what we are asking you to approve tonight is a resolution that would authorize us to apply for a grant for Hennepin County planning funds to kind of look at the 2 corridors extending south from our main commercial area. That would be West Broadway, from basically the Target store southeasterly to the Canadian Pacific tracks, and then Douglas Drive, both the city-owned portion from West Broadway north to Becker Park, as well as the county portion from the intersection of West Broadway south to the Canadian Pacific tracks. One of the things we've talked about before is the need to improve the functionality of this kind of offset and skewed intersection here, where Douglas and Broadway intersect at that traffic signal, and look at shifting it south so it lines up with Hanson Court to create a good 4-legged intersection that would improve access to Hanson Court, as well as make the pedestrian and motor vehicle operations through that intersection function better. And we'd also look at working with Three Rivers Park District to eventually connect Becker Park to a new regional trail that they are starting to plan for, which would follow the Canadian Pacific spur track south from basically where the New Hope Ice Arena is, all the way down to Edina perhaps, following that rail line, to provide another north-south connection through the first-ring suburbs west of Minneapolis. So that would be exciting, and the northern terminus of that trail would basically be Becker Park, because that's where it would connect to the Crystal Lake Regional Trail, which is already existing along almost all of County Road 81 from Worth Park out to Elm Creek Park Reserve. So that would be a great project, and if we're going to look at revamping this area, we need to plan for where that regional trail would go and make sure that anything that we look to do there would accommodate that future regional trail. We also want to improve that southern gateway to our main commercial area. I mean, that is our downtown. And if you're coming from the south, either on Broadway or Douglas, I think as all of you have certainly observed, it doesn't look that great. And when you hear in our annual resident surveys the comment that Crystal looks old and tired, I think those two corridors are probably a large reason for that. It's probably not our main commercial area around Bass Lake Road and Broadway. That area actually looks, I think, pretty good considering the age of our community. But south of there, I think it's a different story. And so we really think that that's an essential part of this. And finally, all of this would help encourage that mixed-use redevelopment of this area to whatever extent the market wants it to happen. So here are some illustrations of kind of existing conditions that are out there. You see the kind of the offset misaligned intersection here. Instead, we would want it to connect into Hanson Court here. A lot of overhead utilities, sidewalks that are literally wearing out, and other things in that whole section. And if you have any doubts, walk that section, walk through that intersection of Douglas and Broadway on foot, or if it's even worse, on a bike. It's not the kind of place where you want to be on foot. So with that, and on the right here is an image of a real rough sketch of what that realigned intersection might look like. But the first step is we have to get to a conceptual layout and preliminary cost estimate so we can look at what the project scope would be, figure out who our potential partners would be, because the county's made it clear that the city is going to have to take the lead here. They will not take the lead, even though the core of this area is an intersection of two county roads. And then we also have to figure out these external funding sources that would go along with the partnerships that we hope to build. So for all that, we're seeking $45,000 from Hennepin County's Corridor Planning Grant Program, which would be matched with $15,000 from the EDA budget for professional services. We expect to receive notification of award if we are awarded in July of this year. We would want to have the engineering consultant under contract in September, conceptual layout and cost estimate in spring of 2022, and I think realistically the earliest construction would occur would be 23 to 24. But that all, of course, depends on our ability to get funding to put this all together. So 2023 to 24 for construction is probably as early as it could happen. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and after that, we would greatly appreciate if you would adopt the resolution authorizing the grant application.
All right, thank you, John. Nancy?
John, looking at the diagram here, I see the red lines on the median. Did you say those would be removed, or, you know, north of the Douglas intersection? Where I see like a double squiggle line.
Like here, or?
Nope, if you go on West Broadway, yeah, right where you're.
So basically the median would be reworked. We'd take advantage of this extra space. Right now the median is only a couple hundred feet long from here to here. Because we'd be shifting the Douglas this is one of the many benefits of this, right? We'd be shifting the Douglas intersection south. We would create space potentially for a left turn into the Super America or a U-turn to get into this car wash property. Whereas right now, this is a right in, right out, and there's no left turn lane for people turning into the Super America. So we're able to take advantage of having more space to work with to add a left turn lane when there isn't one today.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Brendan?
What about that business that's right there on the corner?
Well, there would only be one business impacted. This car dealership would probably have to be acquired.
Yep, that's what
Right there. And that they're just in the way. And so it would be a classic acquisition for road construction type of situation.
Go ahead, Jim.
Didn't we have preliminary conversations with that business?
We have, not specific to this project, but we have asked them if they're interested in selling, and they've said what most people say in that circumstance, which is, well, for the right price. So I do want to emphasize this is all very preliminary, and so that's one of the things that we're going to need to nail down the concept to make sure that that is the one and only acquisition we'd need, and that would be part of project scoping and cost estimating.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
So the new land that would be created where the existing road is, what does that look like transitioning that? Do you have any idea?
So that's one of the things that we've talked about at a staff level. There are some utilities in that area, but not as many as you might think. So there are a couple different options. One is it could be potentially a stormwater infiltration area to help, and that we might be able to get, again, looking at funding partners, that might be one of the pieces of it. Or if the car wash site here ever redevelops, if there aren't too many utilities to relocate, potentially we could do something with vacating that right of way. But again, it's very early, but we can't, there's no single answer to that question. There are many different possibilities, but we just haven't fleshed any of them out yet.
All right.
All right, anybody else? David, go
I'll
ahead.
just make a comment that this part of Crystal's really interesting because these are like the old U.S. highways, if I remember right. So they're at, they're northwest, southeast kind of. So it makes it difficult to kind of plan these intersections and also to turn and be a car. So it's just kind of extra kind of stuff to plan around when you have that kind of awkward kind of like Y-angle roadways and stuff. So just kind of a thought I was bouncing around in my head about the intersection.
That's a great comment. I mean, this is basically history still kind of driving things, decades later, and we're trying to sort of fix and update that for the reality of the way this area's functioned now for the last few decades, which is it's a clear suburban area. The main through traffic is on 81 or 169 now, and this area is really key for all those properties in that immediate vicinity.
Excellent. All right, I think we, at this time, are looking for a motion to authorize the application for the grant at this time. So go ahead, Jim.
I make a motion to authorize the application to the Hennepin County Corridor Planning Program for Douglas Drive in West Broadway.
All right, and looking for a second, John.
Second that motion.
All right, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And looks like motion passes.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so on to item 6. This is item 6, the potential tax increment financing. Sorry, I had it mixed up last time.
Thank you again. This is one that we just talked about a couple of weeks ago. Since then, this is a potential redevelopment site at 5240 West Broadway. It's the just under 2-acre vacant site just northwest of Big Louie's. It's kind of in the middle of the block between the two Hanson Court intersections. Since our work session on May 18th, the developer, they started working on their tax credit application, and they noticed that the scoring criteria had been changed by the State Housing Finance Agency. And while it's federal tax credits, that would be the primary source of funding for the project, those are actually kind of managed through the State Housing Finance Agency. So as they were exploring that, I won't go into the details of the building here, but I can go back to it if you have questions. The developer also noted that they have approximately a $1 million financing gap. That's the difference, again, at a very preliminary level between the sources of funding that they've identified and the uses of funding. So what they asked on May 20th, a little over a week ago, is they asked us to bring back to you a very preliminary request to consider tax increment financing assistance, creating a TIF district for this development. Two main reasons. One, it would help to reduce the financing gap. But second, it would improve their score for the low-income housing tax credit application. So that's why they're requesting this now. And It's a little urgent because the tax credit application deadline is July 15th. And after tonight, you only have one more EDA or council meeting before then, which is June 15th, 2 weeks from now. So we told them we would bring this forward for discussion tonight. And so this really is just a discussion item, and the developer and the city's TIF consultant, Stacy Vilbank from Ellers, is here along with the developer. I think Megan Sand from Sand Companies is also attending remotely. Could answer any questions you might have. But the summary of this really would be a 15-year TIF district would be typical for a development like this, and that would generate about $800,000 present value to help narrow that funding gap, and it would also get the project 8 out of 16 points on that one scoring item. It would still leave about a $250,000 financing gap for the developer to figure out somehow. Just for comparison, staff put in a 10-year TIF scenario just so you could see what the differences are. And there it's a little over $500,000 assistance from TIF. And we get about 6 out of 16 points in the scoring and leave about a $500,000 financing gap. Again, a 15-year TIF district is very common for this type of development. Any questions on this slide before I move on? There's a lot here, I know.
John?
So they're trying to get to 16 points, correct? That's their goal when I'm looking at this table here?
I don't recall how many the total points are for the application. This one category, they can get up to 16. And so this just tells you how much of those 16 they can get.
And then with our TIF, 15-year TIF scenario, it looks like they get 8 of those 16 points, correct?
Yes. I believe the developer, Megan Carr, has raised her hand.
Yep, that's right. Megan, go ahead. Matt would, I think, has to unmute her, or?
Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, but not allowed. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this. Basically, when we came to you a couple weeks ago, at the time, we had not realized that the scoring criteria had changed. And once we got support from the council, we were going through the scoring verification. So working through the actual MHFA document that validates the scoring. And at that point, that's when we realized it, and we immediately reached out to the city to just let them know, that this is a significant change of the points process. In a typical 9% deal where you would have no gap, meaning when you submit to Minnesota Housing, you show a $0 gap or a very low gap. For typical 9% deals, they would have in past years gotten 16 out of 16 points. So it is quite a swing in point allocation. We would not anticipate, and most 9% projects will not be able to obtain the full 16 points. So we are, unless the city council is willing to, at this point, we're not asking for getting to 16 out of 16 points, but we would love support of one of these TIF scenarios. We would prefer the 15-year because it gets us a few more points, but we would love to obtain some support of either of these would be great.
All right, thank you so much, Megan. And any other questions on that or follow-up, John?
So any other questions I would ask on this slide? I have one more slide, but there's a lot of material on this one slide. So do you all understand what I just kind of burned through pretty quickly there? And do you have any questions on that?
Okay.
Okay. So the ask for 2 weeks from now would be for you to adopt a resolution supporting the application to MHFA. That resolution would be very similar to one that the City of Plymouth adopted in 2018, and there's a screenshot of it on the screen in the upper right-hand portion. The resolution would authorize staff to work with Ellers and the developer to prepare a TIF plan for a TIF amount up to whatever maximum amount you set in the resolution. And those were on the two options. There's a couple examples, but those were on the previous slide. The resolution is subject to all of the statutory required steps to establish a TIF district. A detailed financial analysis, that's basically where our consultant, Ellers, at the developer's expense, by the way, our consultant checks their numbers and makes sure that the return isn't excessive, that the assumptions are accurate and reasonable, that sort of thing. A very in-depth review of the developer's pro forma. The but-for test, where as part of doing a TIF district, you have to show that this development would not occur but for the TIF assistance. And then we have to have at least one public hearing, and requires action by the EDA and the City Council before the TIF district can be established. Now that's an oversimplification. There's actually even more to the process than that, but that's just gives you a sense of what would be involved going forward. And this resolution would be conditional upon all that stuff happening. Would also be conditional upon the project getting awarded those tax credits, because that's the reason for the ask of you in the first place. And even if the tax credits are awarded, this resolution would not bind the city or its EDA to providing tax increment financing for this project. So with all of that, our three basic questions we'd love to get some feedback from all of you tonight are, what are your thoughts in general about creating a TIF district for this particular project? Do you have any thoughts about the level of assistance? And I can go back to the previous slide if that would help. And are you ready to consider a resolution authorizing, well, the bullet points in the upper left-hand part of the screen, authorizing staff to proceed with that? Are you comfortable with that resolution 2 weeks from now?
Jim?
Okay. Last time we had a conversation on TIF, I believe I wasn't here. That was almost a year and a half ago. Not specific to this particular project, but there's a lot about TIF that I don't support. Actually, the whole concept of TIF I don't support, and there's a lot of reasons for it. To answer the question generally, I don't support it. It basically, you know, we go through different financing options for cities to kind of use as a tool. We used to have a conversation that was, well, let's use this tool in the toolbox to accomplish this. At the end of the day, there's really no magic bullet in terms of creating finances. It's just done different ways, and some ways that they're done are more obvious than others. I look at TIF as a more indirect approach. From a city perspective, TIF is fantastic. You know, make no mistake. We get tax increment from the future. That's not only our local city increment, but we also get county increment, which is fantastic. I tend to look at things more from a citizen perspective. And this kind of creates my opinion of TIF. When we create a TIF district, what we do is we take that county tax money and we're able to use it to promote a private investment. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that because what they're going after is public money. So basically we need to get public money to get more public money. And when we do that at the county level, and make no mistake, we've benefited as a city using other TIF districts and using that money to accomplish a lot of things. So great thing for cities. But from a private business or from a private individual perspective, we as citizens now are funding not only through the federal government the affordable housing project, but we're also funding some of our city tax increment. That city tax increment is going to be used for the general fund. So therefore, we have to raise more in the general to replace that increment. And I know the argument is that we wouldn't have that increment if it weren't for this project. So there's a little bit of disagreement from, I guess, my perspective in the stated benefit of TIF. I believe that there can be some increased in redevelopment that can be accomplished without using city money. Now, the big thing is, it's not just city. When a citizen loses the tax increment at the county level, and of course this is the same argument as the city, that increment from the county has to be replaced per se. And again, I want to be very clear that I do understand that it's the increment, but it's more of an opportunity cost. If you guys understand opportunity cost, we don't have an opportunity to allow a private individual to come in and increase and redevelop this property because we've decided to do it through the TIF district. So there is that opportunity cost. So again, we take it away from the county and we take it away from the city, and quite frankly, I don't support that. Especially when we talk about affordable housing in Crystal. We had some commentary in one of our earlier work sessions about affordable housing, and we have that here. And I'd rather see assistance for some market rate in Crystal than affordable housing. It's my personal opinion. And again, I'll make the same comment as I made earlier in the work session, that this is something that we can't get assistance for to do market rate housing, to have a more balanced housing inventory like an Edina can do. They get assistance for affordable housing so that they ostensibly can have a balanced housing stock. So it's something that's kind of where I'm at. I'll let you guys have some commentary. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Anybody else? John?
Is Stacy still on the line? She,
Actually, I may have misspoken. I thought she was going to be here, but I don't see her on the screen. Matt, can you see if Stacy Quilvang? Is there anyone else here? Yes, she is here.
all right. Can she hear me?
Yeah, we'll unmute Stacy.
Okay. So just a couple questions, and most specifically to her, because she helped us with the Kavanaugh Senior Living project and understanding how that worked. So can a project like this be built, or can this project be built without TIF money? I mean, you know, if you follow the mayor's example, does a project like this get done? And that's, you know, Stacy, can you kind of help me understand the ins and outs of TIF districting and whether or not, you know, just, you know, plain old private investor money can get it done?
President Commissioner Stacy Quilvang with Ellers. So this is a tax credit project that they are making an application to MHFA. And what I can tell you is without any local match, either through tax increment, fee waivers, building permit waivers, any other assistance, they likely won't score well enough to get financing for the project, and so it would not move forward. So every tax credit project that goes through MHFA has some form of a local contribution, which is really required through their scoring.
Go ahead, Jim.
So some type of tax abatement would work as well. I mean, it doesn't matter what type of financing. At the end of the day, it's local support.
Correct.
Okay.
President, Commissioners, it's local support. But, you know, tax increment, you know, as stated, you get the benefit of likely a shorter term because you're able to use the county dollars as well as your own.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Johnson.
I should speak to the fee waivers too, because the developer did mention that, and some other cities have done that. But we don't really have that scope. First of all, we'll not be charging a park dedication fee like almost all cities do, because this is a lot consolidation. It's not creating new lots. It's not a subdivision of land. So right off the bat, we're not charging a park dedication fee. The SAC charge is payable to Met Council. We're just the pass-through, so there's nothing the city can do to make that go away as a fee waiver. And then we do not have a WAC, a water access charge, like cities that have their own wells and treatment plants do. And so that is really all that's left are kind of just your building permit fees. And of course, similar to the mayor's comments a bit ago, I mean, if we were to give a waiver of building permit fees, then everybody else in the community has to pay more to make up for that, because we're still having to provide the service on the project. So really, we don't have the scope that some other cities do, for the simple reason that our fees are less to begin with than a lot of cities charge.
Anybody else? Any more comments? All right, Jim?
One quick one. You know, these other types of ways of helping to fund are more direct, I think, and more, I would call it more transparent. You know, even if it was like a tax abatement thing, it's more direct, it's more specific. Everybody knows exactly what we're doing. It's not that I have to support tax abatement. It's, I believe everybody in the public understands what that looks like. If we're not charging permit fees, everybody understands that. If we're not charging the park, what is the park, what's it called?
Dedication.
Dedication, thank you. People understand that that's an exception. And I just think it's more transparent.
All right, so what are our next steps?
Well, it doesn't sound like there's objection to considering a resolution 2 weeks from now. I think it sounds like there might be a mixed vote, which is totally fine. That's the way things work. But what I'm hearing is that we should proceed with working with the EDA attorney to prepare a resolution similar to the Plymouth resolution that's on your screen. And these are very common in tax credit projects. So they probably have a template for it. But we would proceed and bring that to you 2 weeks from now and ask, maybe we'll have some more refined numbers or something, but at this point we would basically be asking you to approve the resolution or not. And with that, sand companies can know whether to proceed with their application to MHFA.
Okay, I have a question, actually. So when you come back to us with those numbers, could you have something worked up that's the ideas that Jim presented and how that stacks up with the TIF? You know, what those points look like for them, how feasible it is to have this done, as Jim has pointed out, in a more transparent like manner. Right.
That's a great question, Stacy. Would you be able to, for each of those TIF scenarios with the amount of the pay-as-you-go note, would you be able to provide within about a week to 10 days a comparison of how long the tax abatement would have to be, if it can even go that long, I don't recall, to get to those numbers, both to compare to the 15-year TIF scenario and the 10-year TIF scenario? Because again, as has been mentioned with the tax abatement, it's just our own city taxes. It doesn't include the county and the other portions, which is the advantage of using TIF. Is that something you can put together to show how long the abatements would need to run?
Correct, I can do that. And what I would say is tax abatement isn't more transparent than tax increment, because again, it's still about increased taxes based upon the development that you're giving. You're just giving your portion rather than allowing to give the county's portion and portion of the school as well.
Okay. Jim, go ahead.
I would have some questions relating to some type of tax abatement or those other options.
What are some of the options you mentioned? I'm sorry.
It was the park dedication
Yep.
fee and some of the building permit type
Right.
costs.
Water access.
So that's what I was alluding to, not necessarily tax abatement being more transparent.
But leading to my question is, how does that score in your application, or does it not register? Are they specifically giving you a score for a TIF district, or are these other methods not?
Right.
I believe any type of local assistance. Megan's raised her hand, but I think that's what
Go
the
ahead.
answer is.
All right. Yes, go ahead, Megan.
Correct.
Yeah, so it would be any type of city, I shouldn't say any type, but generally city assistance. And I would have to look at the numbers and determine if it would score. Certainly the level of assistance makes a difference on the amount of points that you're able to obtain. So when I talk about that it would be challenging for a project to get 16 out of 16 points in this category, That's because you would have to have over 10% of local participation. And that would be very challenging for any project to have a 10% local participation without having, if they were awarded previous tax credits and this was a follow-up application, then perhaps, but that's very rare in Minnesota. On the first round in July to go in as a previous award. But I would say certainly those other options would be feasible. If they are fee waivers, I believe they score in a different category, but it would still score additional points depending on the level of assistance.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead, John.
So because our scope of waivers is so limited, because we don't have park dedication or whack charges to begin with, there's nothing to waive. It's really just the building permit. I mean, the building permit for a building of this size, I don't have an exact number, but it's tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands. So it doesn't even get, I mean, it's not, I mean, we could do it, a fee waiver for what we are charging, but that's really all we have to offer. And it's an order of magnitude less than what they would need to move the needle for them.
Okay.
Yeah, on a typical project this size, we would see anywhere from like $40,000 to $90,000 of building permit fees, depending on the city. So just to give an idea, I'm not sure exactly with Crystal, but.
Yeah, we're in there.
Okay. All right, well, it looks like you're gonna draw something up and then we'll see what happens. As far as TIF is concerned is your original proposal then.
And we'll make whatever comparisons we can
Yeah.
to address some of the options that were brought up tonight. Thank you for the discussion. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, yes. Okay, so now on to other business. Any other business?
I don't have anything to offer,
I was
but I
gonna
would.
say updates on properties.
Well, so a new restaurant has opened where the Taqueria El Jalapeno is located in the strip mall north of Crystal Liquor Warehouse and Little Folks Daycare. That's it's called Family Cafe and Diner. So it is not specific to Mexican food. It's more of a kind of traditional American style food, but it is in that same space. So if you knew where the Taqueria El Jalapeno was, that's the place where this new restaurant is. Bella's Cafe and Bakery and Ice Cream Shop will be opening late June to mid-July-ish, sometime around then, in the former Aquatropic space just north of Milton's in the 3500 block of Douglas. So look for that to open soon. And still no word on the former Burger King or Pizza Hut properties. Both of those are in the hands of the owners, and it's up to them to decide when to move forward with something. So I don't have anything more to offer on those.
All right. Well, it looks like oh, yes, go
Real
ahead,
quick,
David.
did you have an update on, is it Cafe Ambiance, the place that's in the old Caribou?
My apologies, I should have mentioned them. They are also getting ready to open. I don't have an exact date, but they're looking maybe at the middle of this month. You know, I'm sure as with any business owner, it changes day to day when you're trying to get up and running, but that was the owner's best guess. I talked to her late last week to get an update. So I would look that business, and that's the former Caribou coffee space is now Ambiance Cafe, and that will be opening in mid-June, and that's at the kind of southwest corner of Bass Lake Road and Jersey Avenue in the Crystal Shopping Center.
Excellent. All right, well, I think we're at adjournment. Now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Brandon?
Make a motion to adjourn the EDA meeting.
So
You can go
moved.
ahead and,
You call it.
all right, Brendan first and you, John, second. I'm sorry. All in
You gotta say
favor?
something.
Oh, the look that I was giving. I make a
good?
motion to adjourn the EDA meeting.
Okay, excellent. And then,
So moved.
so moved. Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
I will